Can you believe it? You're under arrest, Grandpa, they shouted, snapping those cold handcuffs around his wrists like it was nothing. And what did he do? Not a single word escaped his lips. Daniel Rigg just stood there, staring straight ahead, calm and silent as if the world's chaos couldn't touch him. Did he know something they didn't? Oh, you bet he did. In that cramped little courtroom, folks whispered behind their hands, a few even snickered like it was some kind of joke. One juror rolled her eyes, can you imagine, dismissing him as just another cranky old man tangled up in a petty fight. But here's the kicker, nobody in that room, not even the judge perched high on her bench, had the faintest clue that the man sitting there in chains had once stopped a war dead in its tracks with one breathtaking shot. And guess who was racing toward that courthouse, ready to spill the truth? A 4-star general, his uniform gleaming with honor, a man who owed his very life to the silent figure they dared to judge. Welcome to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where every act of courage and kindness lights up the darkness. Aren't you dying to know what really happened? We're growing stronger every day, and I can't thank you enough for being here with us. Picture this, a tiny courthouse, smaller than you'd ever expect, a humble 2-story brick building squeezed between a dusty old library and a dentist's office in a sleepy southern town. It's the kind of place where time drags its feet, where folks still tip their hats to strangers and assume a uniform means something sacred. That morning, the parking lot was buzzing, half full before the sun even peeked over the roofline. Can you feel the tension building? Everyone sensed a storm was brewing, even if they couldn't name it yet. Inside, reporters huddled near the back rows, their cameras poised like hawks, sensing a story ready to explode. The case seemed so small, so ordinary, a scuffle at a gas station, no weapons, no blood, just a clash between a retired Marine and some hot-headed younger guy who swore the old man threatened him with military violence. Sounds like a simple misdemeanor, right? Something to brush off and forget. But oh no, there was something about Daniel Rigg's silence that set everyone on edge. He didn't argue when they questioned him. He didn't explain a thing. He just showed up to every hearing, right on time, all alone in that same faded shirt and jeans, his eyes carrying a weight that made even the bailiffs squirm. Why couldn't they figure him out? The town couldn't stop talking. He's unstable, some hissed. Just a stubborn old fool, others sneered. One snarky article even branded him a disgruntled ex-military with a temper problem. But here's the outrage, nobody bothered to dig into his record. Nobody even asked. They just assumed he was another washed-up veteran who couldn't hack civilian life. That's how they whispered about him in that quiet little town, if they bothered to mention him at all. Out there on the edge of the woods, he lived alone in a modest trailer, no internet, no mailbox, just him and the silence. Neighbors would spot him at dawn, walking those winding paths, his back ramrod straight, his step steady as a drumbeat, always in those same worn boots. Strange, some thought. Broken, others decided. But a man who mattered. Never crossed their minds, how could they miss it so completely? In that courtroom, his name was just a scribble on the prosecutor's file, Daniel Rigg, age 66, former U.S. Marine. That's all they knew, or cared to know. His public defender barely glanced up from her scribbled notes. She tried talking to him, but he gave her nothing, no family, no witnesses, no alibi, not even a flicker of anger. Just that unshakable calm that made the judge pause before calling his name. Didn't that mean something? The bailiff let him in slow, cuffs biting into his wrists, though he never fought back. He stared straight ahead, eyes locked on some distant point, not broken, not beaten, just done. Behind the defense table, a few gawkers sized him up like he was some sideshow oddity. "Isn't that the guy who flipped out over a parking spot?" one muttered. "Nah, I heard he threatened to shoot someone, PTSD, probably," another shot back. Can you believe the nerve? The judge swept in, the room snapped to its feet, and the trial kicked off. It sped by, too fast, if you ask me. Witnesses stumbled through vague stories. A store clerk mumbled about aggressive body language, a woman swore she heard him mutter something about knowing how to kill, Then came the so-called victim, a guy in his 30s sporting a neck brace he clearly didn't need, really, claiming he feared for his life when Daniel looked at him. "What did he say?" they pressed. The guy faltered, then spat out, "He said he could end me from 800 yards without blinking." The courtroom buzzed, but the defense? Silent. Why? Because Daniel Rigg just sat there, still as stone, his face a mask, as if none of it touched him. The prosecutor strutted up, brimming with swagger, and launched into his closing. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this man may have served once, but that was ages ago. What we've got now is someone clinging to the shadow of a uniform he doesn't wear anymore, someone who thinks his past gives him a free pass to scare folks. That's not heroism, that's dangerous." He let those words sink in, heavy as lead. Some jurors nodded, others stared at their shoes. The public defender stayed mute. The judge rattled off instructions, and everyone figured deliberation would be quick. Bailiffs hustled Rigg toward the holding room as cameras flashed and whispers trailed him. But wait, did anyone notice that sleek black SUV rolling up to the courthouse steps? Inside sat a man in a crisp uniform, for silver stars glinting on his collar, his gaze fixed on one name, Daniel Rigg. The deliberation room door shut with a hollow thud that echoed through the hush. Barely 3 minutes in, some guy in the gallery leaned over to a reporter and smirked, "They won't take long." Even the judge, stepping off the bench but lingering nearby, flipped through her notes like she knew the end was already written. Over in the corner, Daniel Rigg sat alone, hands steady on the table, eyes unwavering. His cuffs were off for now, but that heavy chain still dangled from his belt. He looked like a man who wouldn't lift a finger to fight back, like he'd learned long ago that people only see what they want. Isn't that just heartbreaking? Outside, the hallway swelled with chatter. Someone had snapped a trial pic and tossed it online, bam, and now news anchors were scrambling into position beyond the double doors. In the parking lot, a handful of veterans who'd served with Rigg, guys who hadn't laid eyes on him in years, started trickling in, drawn by quiet texts and gut feelings. They weren't there to testify, nobody'd called them. They came because this whole thing stank. And then, oh, here it comes, that SUV glided up, no sirens, no fanfare. Out stepped a man who wasn't some bodyguard or slick politician, no way. This was General Samuel Wyatt, retired Chief of Special Operations Command. Most folks wouldn't know his face, but the second he strode through those doors, the clerk snapped to attention, and the security guy didn't dare ask for ID. "Where's courtroom 3? Wyatt asked, voice steady but firm. He wasn't here to watch, he was here to act. Inside, nobody had a clue he was coming. The jury was still out. The judge tapped her pen, restless. The public defender pecked at her laptop, faking busy. The prosecutor smirked at his phone. And Rigg? Same as always, rock solid, unbothered, ready. Out in the hall, General Wyatt brushed past reporters without a glance. "You with the press?" one yelled. Silence. Another clocked those stars and hit record. Wyatt paused at the courtroom doors, his face calm but loaded with purpose, respect and urgency all rolled into one. Then he stepped inside, and everything changed. The judge blinked up, puzzled, then shot to her feet when she clocked his insignia. The room froze. Can you feel the shift? Cameras swiveled. The prosecutor stood, dazed, like this was some wild stunt. Wyatt didn't head for the bench or the prosecution, nope, he marched straight to the defense table, right to Daniel Rigg. For the first time, Rigg looked up. Their eyes locked. Oh, what a moment. No words, just a charge in the air, thick and reverent. Nobody dared breathe. Wyatt stood tall, hands behind his back, facing Rigg like he was about to drop a bombshell. The judge coughed softly. "General, what brings you here today?" Wyatt didn't rush to answer. He held Rigg's gaze, then turned to the room, voice steady as steel. "I'm here because this man right here, is why I'm still breathing." He doesn't know I came. He didn't ask me to. He'd probably rather I didn't. But I heard about this trial, and I couldn't sit quiet, not a chance. The prosecutor fidgeted. Reporters leaned in. A juror slipping back from the hall stopped dead, eyes wide. Did she just stumble into history? Wyatt stepped toward the bench, calm but commanding. 31 years ago, I was trapped behind a crumbling wall outside Fallujah. My unit was shredded, comms dead, 2 men bleeding out, no way out. Surrounded. Then, out of nowhere, a sniper carved us a lifeline. No chatter, no glory, just 12 perfect kills in under 5 minutes. The last shot. Through a rooftop hatch, 936 yards, moving target, crosswind howling. That shot saved me and my men. That sniper. Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Rigg. The room erupted in murmurs, but Wyatt raised a hand. Silence fell fast. I've seen the charges, heard the testimony, and I'm telling you, whatever he said in that parking lot, this man's earned the right to be heard in ways you can't fathom. He doesn't talk much, never did. He didn't come home chasing medals or cheers. But if you think he's a threat, you don't know what real restraint looks like. He faced the judge. Permission to address the jury? She nodded, stunned. Go ahead, General. Wyatt stepped to the jury box, took a breath, and let it rip. Daniel Rigg didn't defend himself because he's not guilty, he's exhausted. Tired of being misread, tired of his silence getting twisted into menace. But I know him. When chaos hits, when bullets fly, when hope's gone, you pray for a man like him. He eased back, then added soft, you don't chain men like this, you write them into legend. Then, hold your breath, General Wyatt dropped to one knee. Not weakness, not theater, but a raw, aching apology, for a world that forgot Daniel Rigg. Nobody budged. The bailiff gaped. The prosecutor's jaw hung. The judge clutched her gavel, hand trembling. The jury shuffled in, staring at a 4-star general kneeling before the man they'd nearly condemned. One juror teared up, can you blame her? Another hung his head. Rigg didn't flinch at first, just watched Wyatt with those heavy, knowing eyes. Then, slow as dawn, he stood, walked over, and offered his hand. Wyatt took it, rising, and there they stood, 2 warriors, bound by a debt deeper than words. The judge's voice cracked. Given this testimony and extraordinary context, I'm dismissing all charges, now. The gavel fell, soft but sure. They unlocked Rigg's chains, and this time, hands hesitated with awe. He didn't bolt. He nodded to the jury, once, and walked the aisle, steps ringing out like a long overdue salute. Outside, veterans snapped to attention as he passed. One saluted, unprompted. Reporters stammered, but Rigg kept moving, silent, always silent. Wyatt trailed behind, a witness to the end. And as they hit the sunlight, Daniel Rigg looked less like a shadow and more like a hero finally stepping free from a war that wouldn't let him go. Isn't that a story worth telling? Can you picture it? In a bustling hall, General Wyatt marched past a swarm of journalists, his silence louder than any shout. One bold reporter dared to call out, "Are you with the press team?" but Wyatt didn't even flinch. Another, sharper-eyed, caught the glint of 4 stars on his shoulders and fumbled to hit record. Could this be the story of the year? He paused just outside the courtroom doors, his face a stoic mask, yet burdened with something deep, not guilt, not anger, but a powerful blend of respect and urgency that you could almost feel in the air. After a heartbeat of stillness, he flung open the door and stepped inside. Can you imagine the tension? The judge, buried in her papers, glanced up, her confusion flashing into awe as she clocked the insignia on his chest. She shot to her feet, and the courtroom? It froze solid. The jury was still out, but oh, how the room had transformed, electric with anticipation. Reporters swiveled their cameras like hawks zeroing in on prey, flashes popping like a thunderstorm. The prosecutor rose slowly, blinking hard. Was this a prank, a dream? But Wyatt didn't hesitate. He strode forward, ignoring the bench, brushing past the prosecution, heading straight for the defense table, straight for Daniel Rigg. And then, for the first time, Rigg lifted his head. Can you feel the weight of that moment? Their eyes locked, no words needed, just a silent storm of understanding crackling between them. The quiet wasn't clumsy or strange, no, it was sacred. No one dared breathe, as if the air itself held its breath. Wyatt stood tall, hands clasped behind his back, facing Rigg like a man about to drop a truth heavier than any battlefield command. The judge, still on her feet, cleared her throat, her voice quivering ever so slightly. "General, can I ask what brings you here today?" Oh, the curiosity in her tone. Could anyone guess what was coming? Wyatt didn't rush. He held Rigg's gaze a moment longer, intense, unbreakable, then turned to the courtroom, his voice steady as steel yet brimming with conviction. "I'm here because this man sitting before you is the reason I'm alive. He doesn't know I came today. He didn't beg me to show up. In fact, he probably prayed I'd stay away. But when I heard about this trial, I couldn't sit back, not for a single second." The prosecutor squirmed in his chair. Did he sense the ground shifting beneath him? Reporters leaned in, pens trembling, hungry for the scoop of a lifetime. One juror, slipping back from the hallway, stopped dead in the doorway, eyes wide. Had she just stumbled into history? Wyatt took a step closer to the bench, not to loom, but to make damn sure every syllable hit home. 31 years ago, I was pinned behind a crumbling wall outside Fallujah. My unit? Scattered to the winds. Communications dead, 2 of my men bleeding out, no way to pull them to safety. We were surrounded, hopeless. And then, out of the chaos, a single sniper sliced through the enemy like a bolt of lightning. He didn't speak, didn't pause for applause, he just fired. 12 confirmed kills in under 5 minutes, every shot a masterpiece of precision. And the last one? Through a rooftop hatch at 936 yards, moving target, crosswind raging, unreal. That shot saved my life and the lives of the men beside me. He stopped, letting the enormity sink in, his eyes sweeping the room. That sniper. Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Rigg. Gasps and murmurs exploded across the courtroom. Could it be true? Wyatt raised a hand, and silence crashed down like a gavel. I've pored over the testimony, studied the charges, and I'm telling you now, whatever words this man supposedly spat in a parking lot, he's earned the right to be heard in a way none of you can fathom. He doesn't talk much, never has. He didn't limp back from war-chasing parades or pats on the back. But if you dare think for one moment that the man sitting here is a danger to anyone, you've got no clue what real restraint looks like. He pivoted to the judge, his tone respectful yet unyielding. With your permission, I'd like to speak to the jury. The judge, still reeling from the bombshell, gave a slow, dazed nod. Proceed, General. Wyatt stepped to the jury box, drawing a deep breath. Can you feel the gravity? There's a reason Daniel Rigg didn't defend himself. It's not guilt, it's exhaustion. Tired of being misread, tired of the world twisting his silence into something dark. But I know him. I know that when hell breaks loose, when bullets scream, when no one's got a plan, you pray to God a man like him is close by. He eased back, his voice dropping, yet piercing every heart. You don't lock men like this in chains, you carve their names into history books. And then, oh, the shock of it, General Wyatt dropped to one knee. Not from weakness, not for drama, but as a raw, soul-deep apology, not just from him, but for a system that had turned its back on Daniel Rigg. The courtroom went still as a grave. The bailiff didn't budge, the prosecutor was mute, and the judge. She sat there, one hand on her gavel, the other pressed to her lips in disbelief. The jury, trickling back from deliberation, gaped at this 4-star general kneeling before the man they'd nearly condemned. One juror brushed away a tear. Did she feel the sting of her own doubt? Another hung his head, shame creeping in. The prosecutor's mouth twitched as if to protest, but what could he say? Daniel Rigg didn't flinch right away. No grand gestures, no shock, just that steady gaze, heavy with decades of unspoken battles. Finally, after an eternity stretched thin, he stood, walked to Wyatt, and offered his hand. Wyatt rose, gripped it tight, and there they stood, not officer and sniper, not witness and accused, but brothers forged in war's brutal fire, a bond no courtroom could touch. The judge cleared her throat, her voice cracking with feeling. In light of this testimony and the extraordinary context brought before this court, I am dismissing all charges effective immediately. Her gavel fell, not a bang, but a thunderclap of finality ringing through the wood-paneled room. Daniel's chains slipped off, and th. Is time, no one dared lay a hand on him without awe. He didn't bolt for the door. He turned, gave the jury a single nod, not thanks, just recognition, and walked down the aisle, each step booming like the end of a saga too long unwritten. Outside, a handful of veterans snapped to attention as he passed. One saluted, unprompted, a quiet tribute to a hero finally seen. Reporters stammered, but their questions crumbled against his dignity. Rigg kept walking, wordless as always. Did he ever need to speak? General Wyatt trailed behind, not guarding, but bearing witness. And as they hit the sunlight, Daniel Rigg shed the ghost he'd been for years, stepping into the light like a man whose war might finally be over. Sometimes, a hero doesn't strut in a uniform anymore, no marches, no salutes, no fanfare. Sometimes he shuffles into a courtroom with a quiet stare and boots worn thin, not begging for applause, just yearning for the world to quit misjudging the silence he's hauled for decades. Daniel Rigg never pleaded for defense. He didn't spill his tale, why should he? Men like him believe doing right doesn't need a cheer. He bore his scars in secret, his memories in whispers, his honor like a load most can't even imagine, until it's nearly too late. But not today. This time, someone roared for him. This time, someone recalled. This time, a man with 4 stars knelt, not to beg, but to right a wrong we keep stumbling into, forgetting what sacrifice looks like when the guns go quiet, forgetting that those who saved lives abroad still battle to breathe here, forgetting that silence isn't frail, its strength too vast to voice. Daniel Rigg didn't strut out vindicated. He left as he was, unshaken, because no verdict could define him. But for once, the world stopped, stared, and saw the hero he'd always been. And maybe that's our takeaway, not waiting for medals or pomp, but spotting greatness while it still treads softly among us. The story of Daniel Rigg hits like a freight train. It's a raw, emotional slap in the face that exposes how miserably we fail our veterans. I'm furious thinking about it, a man who risked everything, who ended wars with one shot, shackled and mocked in a courtroom by people who've never known a fraction of his sacrifice. It's not just unfair, it's a gut-wrenching disgrace. Society loves to cheer for heroes on holidays, but when they're standing quietly among us, weathered and unassuming, we turn away. We judge. We whisper. And that makes me sick. Rigg's silence wasn't weakness, it was power, a towering strength most will never grasp. And when General Wyatt knelt before him, it wasn't just respect, it was a thunderclap of truth. We owe these people everything. That moment chokes me up because it's so rare, so human, and so deserved. It's not about medals or parades, it's about seeing the depth in someone the world's too shallow to notice. This isn't just Rigg's story, it's every veteran we've ignored, every quiet soul we've misjudged. We're obsessed with flash and noise, blind to the greatness that doesn't shout. I'm tired of it. We need to wake up, to stop waiting for capes and spotlights to recognize heroes. They're here, living modestly, carrying scars we'll never see. Rigg didn't need anyone to tell him who he was, he knew. But the fact that it took a general on his knees to make us look. That's on us. We're not just failing them, we're failing ourselves. And I'm done pretending that's okay. This story comes from Heartfelt Gratitude Stories. Before we go, here's a question. Have you ever known someone who shunned the spotlight but deserved the sun? Share in the comments what they meant to you, how you hold them in memory. And if these tales stir your soul, smash that subscribe button to lift the channel. See you next time.